Gettysburg Museum of History Studios. You're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Addressing Gettysburg. And today, we are talking with our old pal, Ken Rich. Ken has been on many times to talk about various things regarding the history of the town, civilians, hospitals. We did one on the fighting in town, if I recall.
July 2nd, 3rd, yeah.
Yeah, we did a ton of stuff with Ken, and you know the town is a very untapped resource. I think not everybody that studies the battle really knows a lot about the townsfolk, the townspeople, whatever. What went on in the town. They kind of glaze over that and then move on to the battlefield, or at least that's what I did.
Right, and some of that goes. It initiates with the tours too. The guides and the rangers, they do a great job, but they only have maybe an hour or 2 hours to catch your attention.
Right,
and so the town has to be glossed over. There was a retreat. Folks lived there, and all of a sudden we're on a little round top. That's
exactly.
pretty much how that goes, and that's an interesting part of it. But at the same time, and today what I wanted to talk about was, what was the cost to the civilians from the Civil War?
Well, so I was going to get there, Ken. You got to let the host do the hosting, okay?
Okay, hosting, sorry.
All right, so one of the things we don't talk about, as Ken and I were discussing beforehand, is that we know all about the soldiers who came here, but what about the people from here who became soldiers and went elsewhere? We know, what is it? Is it the 13th PA? What was Company K in?
1st Pennsylvania Reserves.
Pennsylvania. So
that should be 30th?
30th. So the 30th PA, or the 1st Pennsylvania Reserves, had Company K. They were from here. There were some guys from the 87th that were here. Right. That were from here. Not all of them came back here, though. The 87th wasn't here. And so there's plenty of other Gettysburg sons who went off to fight in other parts of the war. I'm sure maybe some even in the Navy.
I don't have that.
Well, but maybe. I mean, right?
It's probably possible.
Be, right?
Who
knows? Who knows? So that's what we're talking about today. Right.
And so we take a look at this. And when we say, well, what was the cost of Gettysburg? Everybody's mind goes automatically to the time period after the battle.
Yes.
Right? And of course, we talked hospitals and the damage to the town and so on. But the Civil War had already been going on for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. And then if I just take it back to a step and put you in the mind of the townspeople in Gettysburg, so it's 1860, 1861. Congress. Imagine that. It's a lock. It's a log jam. Mm-hmm. It's divided north and south. Nothing gets passed. All right. We come around to the election in 1860. Abraham Lincoln's elected as a Republican, realizing that the Gettysburg area has Thaddeus Stevens, and a lot of the people in town are Republicans and following him. Right. All right. And so now there's going to be a war. And oh my gosh, it's going to last 30 days. It's going to last 90 days. Who knows? We need to join right away. Right. Okay. And then it's going to go on, and there's going to be one battle after another. And I want to say this, as far as and a friend did the research, as far as we can tell right now, none of the soldiers from Gettysburg who were killed during the war, there was no announcements in the newspaper. And I don't know if that's for morale. I don't understand that. But so far, that's, at this point, I haven't found anything that reaches that point.
That is interesting.
Okay. So now, when I go through this, and I want to talk about the monument first, but when you're thinking about this, all right, and we talk about, we got these early casualties. Let's say, all right, so Lieutenant Alexander Bauger, all right. Well, his father is president of the college, and he is going to be the first one that I have that dies in the Civil War, and he will be mortally wounded at Shiloh on 5/16/62. So that's a whole year without. Now they've had a couple of illnesses.
Okay.
But everybody got sick, so they're not. It's not.
They're used to that.
It's not a battle loss per se. A 20-year-old dies or something around here. That's kind of normal.
Right.
As bizarre as that seems to us today, this healthy young adult passes away.
Yeah.
And so this is happening. But the first one that's killed in the battle is Alexander Bauer. He's a lieutenant. Now, interestingly enough, he's not in the Pennsylvania unit. He's in Company B of the 45th Illinois. All right?
So what was it? He was born and raised here and then moved to Illinois? I
find there's a couple of businessmen here in town. Sweeney, Harvey Sweeney comes up, that have property out on the frontier.
Okay.
What's the frontier? Illinois and Minnesota.
Yeah, right.
All right, and so we're going to have soldiers out there. Now, just like today, when something happens, is all your family in town?
No.
I mean, somebody's got a business trip, somebody's visiting their in-laws in Texas, whatever the case may be.
Somebody's in the service.
Right, sure. I mean, there are all these reasons for them not to be around.
Right.
And so when this conflict happens, people join wherever they were. One of the Meals boys, they have a stone yard on York Street where Lee's Buffet is today.
Oh, really?
Right, and so they sold tombstones. And, of course, their competition was Powers. Right,
Powers Hill, yeah,
right. Okay,
yeah.
So to get better business, one of the boys is down in Baltimore trying to sell tombstones to the two big cemeteries down there, right? And newspaper bulletin alerts, newsboys are out, and the Confederates have fired on Fort Sumter. So he goes and joins the artillery at Fort McHenry, becoming the first volunteer from the town of Gettysburg to join the Army.
Oh, that's cool.
Right? Day one.
Yeah.
Right? So they're everywhere, and they join, and that leads us back to Bauer, and that he is out in Illinois, business for his dad or whatever, and joins that unit, which leads him to Shiloh.
Okay.
All right? And so Bloody Shiloh is the first wound here. And then I have to put myself in the mind of this. So I kind of understand where everybody's at, and there's been the phony war. Right, this from Bull Run to Shiloh. I mean, there's conflict everywhere.
Right,
but there's no catastrophe. There's nothing that really hits them, and Shiloh does. Now here, it's not in a newspaper. So what are the neighbors saying? Did you hear? Professor Boucher, his son was killed. Right, and she goes, oh my gosh, no, not him. I liked him so much, Alexander, and that's going house to house, maybe clothesline to clothesline as the ladies are talking. I mean, really, as everybody's going about their chore.
Yeah.
All right, and so
he's the first death from
He's
Gettysburg.
the first death in the war, first combat death.
That would make the rounds, I'm sure.
Right, the first combat death. Now I have another one that is going to be just a couple of weeks later. Well, let's do this. Okay. Let's hold on that. I'll go back to the deaths part of it. And I want to talk about something else. We drive past this on Middle Street, right? And there's a brick building and there's a monument out front. And if we know it, it's the JR Hall.
Yeah.
All right. And at the time of the Civil War, it's the Methodist Church.
Okay.
All right. And the monument out front is where I'm going to get my names from and where I'm going to start my journey, my search. There's 168 names on there.
So now let's sit on this for a second. So this monument, because I remember you telling me about this years ago. The monument has all who died from Gettysburg in the war, except.
Well, there's a couple things. I found a couple of exceptions. All right, but the major exception is going to be the African Americans. Right, those that joined the U.S. colored troops. And Adams County Historical Society did a good chart on those, so I can go back and get their names, all right, and tag them into other families around town. But there's some more that aren't on there also, and I find that kind of odd. But that must have something to do with who is at the GAR at the time and what information they're gathering.
Okay.
All right. Exception. All right. One of them that's not on there is Henry Clay Sweeney.
Okay.
All right. First off, Henry Clay.
Names. Yeah, right.
Okay. Henry Clay Sweeney. Okay, that's kind of interesting. Harvey Sweeney owns
Sweeney's Tavern.
Right. Okay, which is now the Farnsworth House.
Uh-huh.
All right. So
now the building that Sweeney's Tavern is in was not here during the battle, correct? Just the Farnsworth House.
The house, yeah, just house. Yeah, and you can see
there was a building in the beer garden, but it's not there anymore.
Right,
obviously.
and there's plenty of pictures.
Yeah.
Of what that looked like, and you can I would imagine you could probably find a picture every 10 years of that building.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
I've seen like 4 or 5 of them that I use every once in a while.
Yeah.
All right, fine. So here's another one. Henry Clay Sweeney. He musters in with the 4th Illinois Cavalry. He's in Illinois, and he and his brother are out there. His dad has something going on out there, and they're out there, on the frontier. The unit boarded boats to Cairo, Illinois, heading to battle. He was in the battles at Fort Henry, Baltimore in my head, Fort Donelson, Shiloh, and then heading south toward Pittsburgh in Moscow, Tennessee. Who knew that Moscow was in Tennessee?
I didn't. Right? I thought it was in Russia.
Yeah. He's guarding a railroad bridge and looking for a rebel train. He was mistakenly shot by his own troops.
Oh.
All right, so he's shot by accident. All right, he would have been 18 years old that July.
So he was 17?
Yeah.
And he was killed.
Right. He was buried in the Moscow, Tennessee cemetery, and then transferred to the Memphis National Cemetery. Again, and it's marked, and I have the markings on his graves and so forth. Huh. And plot numbers, his plot number is 970. So when I go through this, there's a couple places I'm going to go. All right. So I'm going to use Ancestry and find a grave. All right. Let's get open the door. Interestingly enough, York County and the York County Historical Society, and they kept a record not only of soldiers from York County in the war, but also some from Adams County. So I can find most of these boys in the York County registry. Mm-hmm. There's like an index card that says who they were, where they came from. And then Pennsylvania, Harrisburg, also had an index card on each of the Civil War soldiers in the state of Pennsylvania. So I can go back and look and find that. All right. Now, and remember that, it's 1860 spelling.
Right.
Okay.
Of course, yeah.
So there's some challenges there to go find that. All right. But the Methodist Church, and I talked with a ranger friend when he was looking into this. He says, for more than a decade, I walked past that church every day, and I wondered about what happened to those boys on the monument. Yeah. Why were their names there? Now, the Methodist Church history, the building that's there today is built in 1822. It was consecrated in November. That's 53 East Middle Street. It's the oldest church building in town, if I have that right. It's the second building for the congregation. So they had a wooden church someplace else.
Okay.
All right. And
out of town?
Someplace else in town, and actually it might even been on that same lot.
Okay.
All right. The story's going to be that the congregation grows. All right. And it's the second building for the congregation. At the time of the battle, it's Reverend Bergstrasser.
Great name.
Right. And Bergstrasser lived on Baltimore Street across from the Pierce house.
Okay.
Right.
Oh,
His daughter, the artillery shell goes through.
Oh, yeah.
So that house is marked.
It's an Airbnb now.
Right. Okay. And of course, during the battle, he was at the church.
Right.
All right. Now, also, and there's a question on this, we actually know that some of the Sisters of Charity were operating out of the Methodist Church. And maybe it's even the headquarters for them. Right? But I'm not, so I have to put a question mark behind that. But that's entirely possible. All right? But again, anybody that knows a nun, when they walk into a building, they take over any place. So that's like their headquarters no matter what.
Right.
All right? They're in charge.
Now, the Methodist Church today is on High Street.
Right.
Correct?
Yeah.
Across from St. Francis?
Yeah, there's a Methodist church there. And but the building, when they outgrow this building after the Civil War, I think the county's going to build it down. They're going to build it down the street.
big band music. All right, maybe this binder isn't a good idea. It's a little hard to maneuver with this binder. Did you know Bethany, Cindy, Jason in the back, Colby, Debbie, 6 questions, Lentz? Did you guys know that there are almost 300 audio shows and almost 100 video shows on our Patreon page? Did you know that? No, you didn't. You didn't know that. You've never heard that before. Did you know that several respectable licensed battlefield guides are patrons, but have asked to remain anonymous so as not to ruin their reputations? You didn't know that either. Patreon now allows a 7-day free trial. So if you're not sure that you want to join and help keep this show going, you can do a 7-day free trial, and it's at the 2nd lieutenant level, which means you get all of the audio episodes, all audio versions of everything released in a month. You get that's 4 episodes in a month that you can listen to all 4. Well, it's a 7-day trial, but you can go and listen to whatever. A lot of people like to go back and just look at all the titles of the shows and randomly hit play at whatever piques their interest. You can do whatever the hell you want to do in those 7 days, and then of course you're going to say, you know what, I'm joining. You could also join as a free follower, and we do some free posts every now and then, so you can see all that stuff. It is, of course, cheaper to join as a monthly member. It's even cheaper to join as an annual member.
Oh my God.
Sorry, I misread that. I spelled it wrong. And did you know that 908 out of 909 college sophomores agree that you can't say you're fully prepared for the guide exam without having consumed all of AG's Patreon content? Guys, they're college sophomores, okay? Watch the news. They know everything. They'll tell you, believe me. Trust the science of that poll and trust the college sophomores. You've only lived decades more than they have, so what could you possibly know? You know what I mean? Go to patreon.com/addressing Gettysburg and join us today, and you will not be sorry you did. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.